All right, gang, welcome to another Wake Up Humans. I'm really excited for this one. And I know people will say that, but this one, I was researching some stuff last night on this guy, and we've known each other for years, but I learned a lot of new things, and I'm always wondering why people do what they do. And this guy is a heavy hitter that I feel in our profession is not being used to its fullest potential. So we'll see where this conversation goes. Let's welcome Keith Wassung. How are you, pal?
Perfect pronunciation. Good morning, Dr. Steve.
My man, hey, I was an English major, so that probably helps me a little bit.
I can't pronounce it, so I don't expect anybody else to.
So let's just jump right into this, man. It's funny because I want to be prepared for these things, and I really want to get into who you are. And it's just like you have an amazing background, and one of them is you're strong as fuck. You were in the Navy, and I learned you held like the bench pressing record in the Navy. And there's always a picture that comes out around Veterans Day you put out there standing on a ship, and it's just badass, man. So one, we appreciate you, and two, how much were you bench pressing?
I was doing a natural. I was a natural lifter. At one time, I held all the national records.
So you're not like the Liver King?
No. In competition, right around 5'10", got as high as maybe 5'20", 5'25" in the gym. Good clean. But 5'10" is my all-time best. And this was before the supportive shirts and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, you didn't have that tight leather-bound shirt?
It's ridiculous.
So I bring that up because the story then goes, you started getting really sick.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel this is why, it's almost like you ended up doing what you're doing, which we'll get into. But why don't you share, what happened with you waking up and your body's, you're going from this powerhouse lifter to what happened?
Sure. It's interesting. I didn't get really sick right away. I got a little bit sick and it cascaded. I came back 1986 from a tour in California. I was the Navy and Armed Forces heavyweight champion. I came back and was very cognizant of my health. And I was around Navy guys that drank all the time, and I watched what I ate. I rarely drank. I had a beer now and then, but I started developing some sinus headaches, and so I go down to see the Navy corpsman, and they gave me a couple of drugs to stop the sinus headaches. They weren't debilitating. They were just kind of annoying. Who wants a sinus headache? And it cleared them up within a day or two, but I ended up with really bad, like I call it nuclear diarrhea. So I go back to the corpsman. He goes, yeah, that's kind of, we expected that. Here's a couple of drugs to stop the diarrhea. Well, the diarrhea stopped, but now I'm having ringing in my ears and couldn't focus, couldn't concentrate. So they gave me another drug, and it just kept going and going and going. And inside of about 2.5 weeks, I'm taking 18 different kinds of drugs a day, about 70 pills in a 24-hour period. And again, I got progressively worse. And, you combine the excessive toxicity with 20 years of accumulated uncorrected spinal stress from growing up on a farm and doing stupid things and fist fighting and jumping off barns and fighting with my older brother, play fighting. We didn't fight. And it sent me into a downward spiral and ended up in the ER. My roommates rushed me to the ER. I collapsed, and they had me in there for about 10 days, just poking and prodding, and finally sent me home with more medication. And I got progressively weaker. I got to where I couldn't function. I couldn't keep food down. Got within a month, I had to live on applesauce. It was the only thing I could keep down there. I would have projectile vomiting. And totally homebound, couldn't walk, couldn't drive, couldn't do much of anything. And they sent me to all the specialists. And again, having the status that I had as a lifter, I had a little bit better access. They flew me to Bethesda, Maryland. I saw Reagan's private physician. And again, these were good people, Doc. These were good, caring people who were doing the best they had. They weren't bad people, and I want to make a point of that. I had doctors sitting with tears in their eyes, going, I just wish I could help you. And this went on for about 14 months, and I got to where I just lost all. I don't remember that year and a half. I don't. It's a blur. I don't remember the football season, and I can remember.
How old were you?
20 going on to 2021. And I can go back till 1970 and tell you every football season, college, I grew up in Nebraska. NFL, and it's a blur. And they finally met with me in spring of '87 and said, you're going to die. Your immune system's failing. I didn't have back pain. I didn't have a lifting injury. I was just, my body was just shutting down. And they said, we suggest you get your affairs in order. And I was relieved. I mean, I went from a guy that could squat 700 pounds to a guy who couldn't go out to the mailbox to get his own mail. So I was ready to go. I know where I'm going in the afterlife. And I had a friend drive me to a shopping mall that summer to buy Christmas gifts for my family, knowing I probably wasn't going to be alive at Christmas. And it took me the entire day to buy literally 4 or 5 gifts. And the last one, I was in a B. Dalton's bookstore. Remember, B. Dalton's was before Barnes and Nobles. And I was buying a few books for my mom. I was going to buy a journal to write it, to keep her, to send to her. And there was a chiropractor in there who had an office across the street who had just opened. And he was at the mall hunting patients. That's what he was doing. He would hang out by the book section, the health, and hand out his card. And he saw me struggling because I mean, I'm shaking. My skin was the color of ash. All my hair had gone. I lost all. They gave me a drug, which I lost all 90% of hearing in my left ear, still the same. And so he follows me out to the food court where I had a friend to pick me up. And he says, "Man, what's wrong with you?" And I was exhausted. I mean, I was exhausted doing normal stuff, let alone, I would have to go buy a gift, go sit in the food court for an hour. Go buy a gift, sit in the food court for an hour. And I finally told him my story. And again, in Charleston back then, I was kind of a local semi-celebrity. People knew who I was. I was on TV, I was on radio. And then they see and go, "Oh, what happened to you? Cancer, AIDS, and, all this kind of stuff."
Why were you a celebrity? From the lifting?
The lifting. Yeah, the lifting. Everyone knew who I was. I was state and national champion, and just people, everywhere I went, people knew who I was. Minor celebrity, I'll say, for Charleston. And he said, "You know what?" He says, I'm a chiropractor. Why don't you come see me?" Which I thought was ridiculous. And I probably laughed for the first time in a year and a half. And I said, "Dude, I got internal stuff. My back's not bothering me." He said, "Keith," and this was a rookie. He was out of practice. He was in practice maybe a month, working for a chain of clinics. He said, "There's a lot more to chiropractic than you think." And I said, "I know I don't look it, but I'm something of a health expert." Pretty arrogant on my part. I've written for muscle magazines. I've written all these programs. I am asked to speak at National Strength and Conditioning Association. I know a lot about health. If there was more to chiropractic, I would know about it. And I finally told him I would come see him just to get rid of him. And about that time, my friend showed up to give me a ride home because I couldn't drive. I couldn't function at all. And my friend said, "You want me to give you a ride tomorrow to this guy's office?" And I said, "What for, a chiropractor?" And he said, "Well, you told him you would." And I said, "Just get rid of him. He was kind of annoying." And friend goes, "Man, if it was me, I'd go." And I said, "Do you know much about chiropractic?" He goes, "Not really, but God, Keith, I mean, what else are you doing tomorrow? If your life's on the line." This was a good guy. Who was one of the guys that just had my back the whole time. So I go see this guy, and he does this whole thing, and he talking and talking. He's a good guy. He just talks forever. And he adjusted me and made me lay down, and I felt no different. And he got up and he hugged me, which I thought was weird back then. I'll see you tomorrow, buddy. I'm like, "Yeah, you ain't gonna see me tomorrow." So I go home, I eat my applesauce, I lay down, and I woke up the next day, not in pain, just stiff and sore. Like the first day you put pads on and 2-a-days, you just a new workout. You're like, "Gosh, this is what these guys do." They hurt you the first day, then they fix you the next day. You know what? And I was just annoyed. I wasn't mad, I was annoyed. So I go take a shower, brush my teeth, and I walk into the kitchen to get my applesauce. And Doc, it's been 37, 38 years. And I still remember standing in the kitchen barefoot in Somerville, South Carolina, and 3 things just hit me. I had just slept 8 continuous hours for the first time in a year and a half. I couldn't sleep more than 2 hours at any point in time. I had just showered, put on clothes, and brushed my teeth. Normally that would require a trip to the easy chair for an hour just to recover. And I was legitimately hungry for the first time in a year. And I knew whatever I ate, I was going to throw up, but I made some soft-boiled eggs, figured they're pretty good. They'll be easy to vomit. And I made like 2 soft-boiled eggs, ate them, sat in a chair with my red bucket, which I carried around with me, and I never threw up. And I went, "Huh, interesting. Somehow, the first time in a year and a half, my life improved in a small way, but the sleep alone was the big one. So I went back, and I kept going back, and I kept going back, and I kept going back. And it wasn't like the hand of God came down and said, you're healed all at once. Every day got a little bit better. My ADLs improved. And I believe this is something we should be communicating, marketing. Chiropractic is more about activities of daily living improvement than any other thing. It is the selling point. And I got rid of the medication, not because he told me to. I just stopped. I'm eating fruits and vegetables. I'm walking. I just every day got better. Pardon me. Within 3 weeks, I put my uniform on. I put about 20 pounds back on and showed up at the Navy office and reporting for duty. They thought they were coming to my funeral, in November, December. Within 6 weeks, I'm back in the gym training, little pink weights. Within a year, I'm competing again, breaking all of my previous records that I'd set about 2 years earlier. And so naturally, I was very curious and began researching. We didn't have the internet, thank God. I had to go to the source, and I began, and I was referring people to him. I was like, I'd make a list of, I'd go to church Wednesday nights, and everyone had a health problem during prayer requests. I'd write their names down, and I'd just go tell them, I'm picking you up on Wednesday, you on Thursday, you on, and I didn't take no for an answer. So I've probably referred this guy 50 people inside of, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks.
Do you remember his name?
What?
Do you remember his name?
Oh yeah, Dr. Robinson.
Is he still alive?
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Still see him, still talk to him. He still struggles with some of the same things that he struggled with, 40 years ago. Good guy though. And I began researching it. And again, I would go down to the Charleston Medical Library, which is a fantastic medical school, and I would spend 8-9 hours because I was on light duty, just reading and studying anatomy and physiology. And it was there, but I couldn't quite. It's like that puzzle. You can't quite figure it out. And he had some green books on his shelf that he had never read. And he said, they're BJ Palmer. And I didn't know who BJ Palmer was. I had no idea.
He gave you Bigness of the Fellow Within, right?
No, Up from Below the Bottom was the first
Up
one.
from Below the Bottom. Okay.
Which is not the greatest entry starter point for someone. It probably was Bigness would have been better. And I started reading it. And the first time through, I mean, nobody reads green books. I mean, they read through them. They go bits and pieces and here and there. And eventually I started reading physiology books, Guyton and things like that. And I would have green books on the left on my kitchen table and physiology. And in the philosophy, I saw why the body works the way it does and why the body always works the way it does. Now, if BJ had a message that really resonated with me, it was the consistency of the universe. In the physiology, I saw how the body works and how the body always works the way it does. And when you combine how and the why and the consistency of it, dang, you got a powerful message. And it took me about 6 months to put it all together. And trust me, I'm going to lay lectures. I'm going to doctors' workshops, and they talked about don't eat sugar, and here's how to lift, and here's a good pillow, and drink lots of water, and oh yeah, your spine's important. But they never really got into the essence of this message. None of them, and including this Dr. Robinson. He just talked in it. And so I just said, I can't believe I missed this. How have I grown up a someone who pursued health, and I never heard the term subluxation. I had actually gone to a chiropractor prior to this event because I'd read Franco Colombo's book about how chiropractic could help performance. And I was always looking for an edge being a natural athlete. And I walked in and showed this guy, husband and wife team, I showed him the book and said, can you help me? And they said, are you in pain? I said, no. And it's nothing we can do for you. So that's been my mission ever since. And I've been doing it 38 years now, just going out and teaching and engaging. And I talk to healthcare professionals. I lecture at medical groups. I do a few of the CE events, as you know, but I prefer to be out in the public. And along the way, I've just created a lot of materials that, one thing that blew me away was how much incredible supporting evidence there is just buried in textbooks and journals, written in PhDs, where it's these guys with 3 PhDs are trying to impress these other guys with PhDs, and even a smart doctor like you kind of look and go, "Dang, what are they saying?" And so I was just, I've had this skill where I could take that out, distill it, break it down, turn it into some sort of a mentally absorbable message. And it's all I've really done. And honestly, I hope with my last breath, I conclude a chiropractic lecture somewhere and drop. So that's it.
Well, you think about, this guy walking up to you in a bookstore, which it's like, what would have happened if he didn't do that, right? If he didn't come in and
Think about it all the time.
he just didn't connect with you and invite you in. And then you touched upon a major principle, many major ones, but one which I kind of want to get your advice on is, you said these chiropractors are out there talking about nutrition and how to lift, and they're kind of skirting the issue and maybe backdoor throwing chiropractic in.
Yep.
And why the hell are they doing that? And would they be better off just sharing the ultimate principle, which is what in your mindset?
Well, there's multiple principles, and they all tie together. And most of those principles, believe it or not, aren't even chiropractic related, but but you end up with chiropractic. And to me, those principles are healing is not an event. It's an ongoing process of cellular replication, all governed through innate intelligence. And I explain what that is. I in that era was told, symptoms are, we don't mask symptoms, we get rid of them naturally. And the more I go, that's really not the goal of chiropractic. Symptoms are how the body heals. Symptoms are part of the healing process, no matter what you have. Therefore, they're uncomfortable. We don't like them. We expect them to resolve, but we want to facilitate the healing, not inhibit it. So that's a big one to me, that symptoms are part of the healing process. And then you get right into spinal health, spinal function and structure equals systemic health, which is inarguable. I had a doctor today on my Facebook go, well, we need more research. And I go, dude, I can throw you 1,000 things right now and you'd never even get through them. Spinal health equals systemic health. And see, once I get them to understand those principles, which are all tied together, then chiropractic just is the natural solution. I really, when I do my lay lectures, which are about 40 minutes, at 38, I haven't even mentioned chiropractic. I don't start with chiropractic because you end up comparing it to medicine. I don't trash medicine, even though it probably deserves to be trashed. I make a comparison of the models, structure versus function, but we end up with chiropractic as a solution, not in solving health problems, but as a lifestyle. And doc, I've gotten to a point, at least for 25 years now, I don't even say chiropractic. I say routine chiropractic, regular chiropractic. It's just that mantra. And so these guys, they want to trash medicine. And even if it's accurate, you end up trashing yourself. You end up attaching yourself to a negative. Yeah. They say, well, it's natural. Well, you know what? Dog shit and plutonium are natural. I don't want to be around either one of those. And they never really get to the essence of it, which is, to me, it's that spinal health, systemic health. Symptoms are how the body heals. Healing is ongoing process controlled by innate intelligence. Those are the 4 things. And Christopher Kent says it differently, but he's saying the same thing. Right. And once we establish those, then chiropractic is to me is a piece of cake. You don't have to sit there and go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. When you try to compare chiropractic to medicine, we don't mask. Then all of a sudden you place chiropractic on that allopathic symptom-based model. Yeah. And people see it as this really cool, neat, natural way of getting rid of symptoms, which is not the premise. So it's not just one principle, but it's there. But if I had to start with something, if someone said just one of those, it would be, let's talk spinal structure and function and its effect on systemic health. Yeah. Chiropractic is best explained through baseline physiology, inarguable. I can literally do a lay lecture with guidance physiology, just going through the book, and its effect. And then we can get into subluxation, and chiropractic is the only possible solution for correcting and maintaining this very important structure. Because the other stuff will come into play.
Yeah, it's funny because when I first got into chiropractic school and I would go to these conferences, they were tearing up the medical profession. And the irony is I saw some of these guys die young because they ended up with medical conditions and they could not sacrifice themselves and go to the medical doctor that probably could have saved their life, and they died young. And that was a principle that, for me, as I've gone around speaking places, that, I think the overuse of medications, and especially in the mental health care system, has to be changed. But you need solid medical people around that. God forbid you have an emergency or something major. We don't need to build ourselves up by knocking them down. Like,
because it doesn't work.
It's just silly. It's a paradigm that's failed, which is one of the reasons why chiropractic has people questioning, and people talk about what percentage of society we need. If we saw everybody in society would just be healthier. It's like gravity. It works every time. But that brings me to, obviously this is fed into your mission where you have, you go out and you'll speak to lay people, which is something I want to talk to you about, because that's something that I want to start. Well, we are creating it. We're going to start it in Connecticut here in March. It'll be like a Wake Up Humans event, but for lay people, where we go in and we get patients and regular people and invite businesses in, and we just explain what you just said, and then offer them options to go find a great chiropractor that we know is a great chiropractor. But you obviously have a company that, why don't you explain what you're doing now and how everything you've been through has led you to obviously what you're doing now, which is what? Why don't we explain that to people?
Well, I'm still by trade a investment advisor. I still do that, not nearly as much as I used to. In fact, most of my time in that space is spent going out and teaching, I call them regional insurance companies, how to communicate, because it's just a communication thing. It's really no different. How to sell with communication, how to sell through persuasion, that kind of thing. On the chiropractic thing, which has turned into a business, I get up every day and I go out and I lecture out in the community, lay groups, medical groups, hospitals. During the pandemic, it was a lot more online and podcasts and things like that. I spend all day long fielding questions from the public via email, via Facebook. I've got tens of thousands of Facebook people who've heard my stuff, and I can't accept them all. And so I'm just supplying information to them. That's a big part of it. There's stuff on my website where the public can access, they can download. And during the pandemic, my section on an immune system, I got more downloads in the first 6 months than I had the previous 10 years combined. And along the way, I provide patient education and marketing materials for chiropractors that they can use. They can easily use in their office to do basically the same thing. And that includes handouts, that includes slideshow presentations, that includes lectures that I've done that they can take on themselves and actually personalize, which we do a lot of personalization. I'm not big into I do some CE stuff. I just got back from doing a guest spot with Rob Sinnott at the ICA Philosophy Diplomat Program. But I don't do a ton of the CE stuff. I'd rather be out in the public. I get guys that call me all the time and say, "Hey, can I pick your ear? Can you coach me?" I don't do coaching. I don't do practice management. It's just I just have time for it.
Right.
I mean, I go, we can sit and talk for an hour, and boy, if you can't get most of what I'm about in an hour, I don't know how these coaches, I don't know how they can string people on for years and years. I don't know what they say past a certain point.
Right.
And so that's just really all that I do. We also provide information to organizations, research organizations. We send information packets out to governors and Congress, and I mean thousands of pieces every month. It's easier now with email. And again, in the last, I don't know, 5-6 years, there's been a boon in the mental health type thing. And of course, my daughter Alexis, who you've met at DE a few times, is a psychiatric nurse who just got her doctorate in May in psychiatric nurse, and has published a few papers. And we're working on some collaborations. And she grew up in chiropractic. I mean, she grew up in it, and she goes, "Dad, I see this. I mean, I have these patients, and they have a variety of mental health issues." And she says, I know there's a neurological component to it. I just know.
Yeah.
And so I've lectured probably to every type of group, medically speaking. But up until 10 years ago, the mental health community didn't want nothing to do with it, wanted nothing to do with me. Now it's the one that's requesting the most amounts of information because they know, they just know. And so it's long days, it's very rewarding days. But that's all I do. And of course, I've had, probably like yourself, a lot of opportunities along the way, a lot of shiny objects, a lot of lucrative type things. And I've just always been able to say, no, this is the path I'm on. This is my life. I can't see any reason to change it at this point in time. Because let's face it, every year or two, there's a new thing, oh, let's rebrand chiropractic that way. And I go, why?
Right.
You know? And
Yeah.
so that's pretty much what I do. And I spend a few hours each day studying and researching. I remember 35 years ago putting together papers, and it was tough to find information in. Now it's tough to know what to include. I mean,
Right.
like this mental health thing, I can't keep up with it. And sometimes I look at it and go, I can't believe the journal neurology just said this about the relationship between hypothalamic input, brainstem, and mental health. It's there. It's absolutely there. It's inarguable. So
Yeah.
that's my mission. I hope to continue as long as I can. I feel like another 20, 30 years of me at least. So,
Awesome. Now, when you say this mental health thing, what is the mental health thing that you're seeing?
well, it's the effect of spinal structure and function on brain, endocrine, hypothalamus, which can produce abnormal brain chemistry. And there's a lot of components to it. There has just been a number of solid studies, again, journal of neurology, journal of neuroscience, that show, for example, that back pain of any type, chronic back pain, will thin the brain and cause cognitive dysfunction within 6 months. It'll accelerate the aging of the brain and thin it out as much as tenfold. This isn't one study. There's at least 30 studies that have shown this. Another one that I talk a lot about is kids. And again, if I'm talking to parents or if I'm talking this into a group, I don't all of a sudden start spouting up all this research. I'll say something to a parent like, hey, have you noticed in the last 15 or 20 years, kids growing up with handheld devices? And they go, yeah. And they're like this all day. And they go, yeah, it's a concern. What do you think that's doing developmentally? What do you think it's doing to their neck? And they say the right things. And I go, do you think possibly that could have an effect on their cognitive development, their brains? Absolutely. Do you think that could cause or contribute to things like there's all these depressions and mental? Absolutely. Boom, we're there. And I haven't even mentioned chiropractic. Now I bring out the research. Now I go, let me share this with you. Let me share this with you. To docs, I say, who maybe don't know where to start, I'll say, listen, you ever have someone come in who's been, quote, diagnosed with fibromyalgia? I go, all the time. I go, have you ever seen a fibromyalgia patient that's all they had? All they had was this chronic muscle pain, which is not even muscle pain. It's a brain, abnormal brain thing. Have you ever seen where that's all they had? No, there's always other things going on. Okay, that's your connection there. And if you do the case history consultation where you're doing the ADL drill down and talking about, you start with that primary issue, but you cascade it out and you can connect the abnormal spinal neural function from their fibromyalgia to maybe what's also causing their issues with their brain, their thyroid, their endocrine. And again, they come up with this. You're just asking the questions and they supply it. And so again, it's not that chiropractic is a solution or a cure for mental health, but you know what? But abnormal spinal function is a significant cause or contributing factor to mental health issues, undeniable, which means regular chiropractic care. No discussion of solving or improving the nation's mental health, especially with youth, can occur without using regular chiropractic care. Right. And again, you're just using physiology. That's all it is.
And plain and simply, they're just better off not subluxated.
Correct.
And if, I think in my 20 plus years doing this, my whole jam in the office has come to, how's your atlas?
Yeah.
We make sure you're clear, and then we sit back and watch the show. And if people could get that simple message and we could get more chiropractors just like that guy walking up to you in the bookstore was pivotal. I mean, look what has happened. One, you lived, and look what you've done with that, and how many lives you've personally impacted by that one guy having a conversation. And we tell this to all our docs, you know, I see these kids, they're out there at the coffee shops and the breweries, and they're taking their selfies. And when they come back Monday, I said, how many people do you talk to about chiropractic? And they're a deer in headlights. I'm like, where the hell's the mission? Who are you explaining this to? People are suffering all around us because they're subluxated. Who's telling them the
And
stories?
you don't have to be annoying and walk up and be like, and I hate to say that, be like the guy that's in the new multi-level and it's just a prospecting. You don't have to do that, but you do have to engage people, and you have
just
to
care. Just care. Say, hey,
and
you know,
and it's, you know, breaking the ice. And one of the things I always say this: engagement is more engagement's more important than information. You got to engage first. And so I'm talking to someone in the coffee shop, and we're chit-chatting a little bit. And I'll say, hey, can I get your opinion on something? You're a nurse, you're a teacher. I'd love to get your opinion on something. Yes, someone, I'd love your opinion. Their engagement and their IQ just goes up to the roof. Say, what? And I'll start with a general thing. What do you think is going on? Something in healthcare. And we build towards chiropractic as a solution. And they're thrilled to have that conversation, as opposed to me walking up and handing them business cards and handing them research and handing them stuff. You don't have to be that guy. I've seen people do it, but we talk to people all the time. And you know what? Health is just part of our vernacular. Right. Hey, how you doing? There's an opening right there. We can talk. And people are eager to share. And right. So I've never, when I say I've never gone on my way, these conversations just come naturally because I'm always looking for them.
I think that's a huge statement, because you're looking for them. That's massive. That's massive. I hate the store Walmart, but every time I go in there, I always walk up by the aisle where they have all the children's drugs. And I've done this since day one. I'll walk down them and see a mom looking at like cough medicine or something. And I'll say, hey, what's going on? Oh, my baby's got this. I said, well, have you understood? And then we get into a conversation, and it's just, it's like taking candy out of a baby's mouth. You're offering them another option. They're lost in the middle of a drug aisle, trying to self-diagnose their kid and put a chemical down their throat. And then when you give them an option of, hey, especially now it's easier. I've got 5 kids and I just talk by example, and they're like, and I just, because I care, you know, and you want to build rapport. It's not a sale, but it's part of the life mission, which is, you know, I see your stuff on Facebook all the time, and I saw some things you just did a couple of days ago, and I'm like, we got to get this guy on here, because I'm in a space right now with chiropractic, and I've seen it with my book, right? It seemed like forever before these freaking guys would share the book with patients, and I think I understand the dynamic of it, but I won't go there. But now guys that are buying cases of books and giving it to patients, they're tripling their practice. Because people are hearing about the mental health and how the brainstem works and how simple, they're saying how simple the message is. They're bringing their families to these guys now. And then I see everything you're doing. Like, why would this naval mission missile tech guy turn his life around and want to educate people on chiropractic? And it's because it saved your life. It saved your life, and you've made your whole lifestyle educating people on this lifestyle, which I think is huge. And I guess my little rant here is, more people in our profession, because I don't know how many do, should be utilizing your material to educate people, because you're sitting there in the cave researching and reading and going through these documents that I'm not going to do. You know, that's why I love like McCoy's stuff too, is because the guy's brilliant. He's going through this stuff that if we just latch on and we all come together and stop pointing fingers and being little bitches and start utilizing this knowledge, we will get the message out there to the people. Because look, I've spoken at enough conferences, seminars to know that we're constantly just talking up each other's asses, that we now got to get people going out to the public. We got to get lay people lectures, 200, 300, 400 people, which is why we're going to take Wake Up Humans around the country now, where fly me in, we could bring a couple guests, get up there, feed them this information, direct them to a principal chiropractor's office where they could get taken care of. End of story.
Yeah. I'll throw a little tidbit in I meant to say earlier. When I'm having these conversations with people out in public, I'm doing about 10% of the talking and about 90% of the listening. And I ask the leading question, and I just walk them down that.
Mhm.
I'm not dominating the verbal aspect of that conversation, which
Right.
makes them trust me, engage me. And I say is listening to someone will build trust faster than anything. So
That's awesome, man. It's obviously working. Listen, I appreciate the work you do, man. We've loved having you at DE in the past. We'd love to get you there again. You always bring a solid message. You have an awesome family. I'm glad you're getting your Atlas checked regularly by Dr. Alex I just lost the other guy's name
Josh.
there. Josh Freeman, awesome dudes, solid. Love the
I can't pronounce Alex's last name, so don't even try.
Lapotniak.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, Lapotniak. My wife just went with some girlfriends to New York City, the Rockettes show, and he was there. He walked up to her out of nowhere. She flew up from Florida. He flew up from Florida. They ended up at the same spot in New York City.
Dr. Alex told me one time that his dad used to bring him to DE when he was in the 5th grade, and he heard me speak, which is really humbling.
His dad and mom are powerful people. I don't know if you've ever met them.
Not that I'm aware of, you know.
If they're ever in town in Orlando there, just go for a cup of coffee with them. His father his mother was a big dentist in New York.
I knew that.
Yeah, but they're deep people. They're cool to talk to.
Yeah.
All right, Keith, man, I appreciate it, man. Let's wrap it up. I mean, people could just Google your name, Wassung, but why don't you tell people how to connect with you and find you?
My website's keithwassung.com. That's KEITHWASSUNG.com. I pretty much keep my Facebook open just because I'm just interacting with so many people. They can find me. I think I'm the only Keith Wassung in the world at this point in time. Emails keith@keithwassung.com. And if they can't find me with those 3 ways, they probably won't. So call, chat, I'll make the time.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you, Keith. Keep up the great work.
Thanks,
and I hope I can keep spreading your message, my man. Thank you.
Oh.